want to bring in the experts to see what they think about what happened in Supreme Court today and the case in general. Jai Anand Dehadrai is a criminal lawyer with the Supreme Court. Shehzad Khan is an actor. Welcome to you both. Jai, I'll kick it off with you. I have seen some comments that you made, Jai, on social media where you did seem to think, that the actions being, I'll come to the Supreme Court in a moment, but the actions being taken against Ranveer Allabadia, different cop teams searching for him from different states, seemed to be disproportionate. What do you think about the case so far?
Hi, Shiv, and thank you for having me on your show.
Good to have you,
look, I agree with you, largely agree with you. And, this needs to stop somewhere now. And I quite agree with what the Supreme Court has done today. I think it has balanced the issue. It has brought some quietus in terms of all of this outrage that was sort of, some of it real, perhaps some of it not so real. And, FIRs from 3 different states. So the Supreme Court had to get involved. And I also would like to say this, that, I think Justice Suryakant, who spoke for the bench, I think he took a very balanced approach. And most of us share the outrage that the bench has expressed. These remarks were depraved. They were disgusting. But then I come back to, the nuance of what you said as well, Shiv. You said that, look, this can be vulgar. But honestly, as a criminal lawyer, if you ask me, this doesn't cross into, cross lines and enter into the field of being obscene in terms of sections 294 and 296 of the BNS, which is where the law is defined. So if it isn't, then I wonder, whether these FIRs will sustain. My sense is that the Supreme Court will reprimand him rightly. And, these remarks, this is really vile, lowbrow, disgusting humor, Shiv. But at the same time, free speech has to be protected. Yes, there are limits in terms of our constitution, in terms of Article 19(2). So within that, we'll have to find some answers. But certainly, sending different cop teams from different states, he's getting death threats. This needs to stop somewhere. He's put in an apology. He can be boycotted by, everybody. And I think even in terms of this aspect on regulation, if I may just add one more thing, Shiv.
Yes, I wanted to ask you about that as well. Yeah.
Yes, I'm against regulation and censorship, largely. But maybe the court felt in its mind, in its wisdom, that some X-rated content on, say, platforms like YouTube, perhaps there could be some kind of a barrier that could be set up where you can filter out younger people and, impressionable minds. And then, you can create some safeguards there. So as long as there is self-regulation, as long as it is reasonable, I think it should satisfy our test of free speech under Article 19.
Okay, I'm going to come back to that regulation bit in just a moment, Jay. I just wanted to read out for our viewers, verbatim what the Supreme Court said as far as those things are concerned. On our screen, you can see the scathing observations that the Supreme Court made, saying dirty, reprehensible, etc. But on the regulation issue, which could have more far-reaching consequences, here's what the Supreme Court said. Need to regulate obscene content online. Would be very happy if government does something on its own, says the Supreme Court. YouTubers misusing, lack of regulation. Before I go to Shehzad, Jay, I want to quickly bring you back in on that. On this particular point where the Supreme Court says, would be very happy if government does something on its own. I don't want to second guess what the Supreme Court has said, but they've preface this by saying, need to regulate obscene content online. That appears to me like clearing the decks for some kind of state intervention.
Shiv, you're absolutely right. And, but here's the thing. I was looking at the media ethic rules that exist currently, which are pertinent to the IT Act. They are wholly inadequate. There aren't really any teeth to it. And the only penal consequence flows from Section 67 of the IT Act, in which you can hold certain intermediaries responsible. So, let's put it this way. Perhaps let's say, you say something that is highly, highly obscene or objectionable, right? Or somebody else on mainstream television says something very objectionable. You would be held to account. There would be some degree of, consequences that would flow. And, the proprietors of your, the media house that you belong to, they would face some consequences. So perhaps the thought is that even intermediaries such as YouTube or Instagram that host some of this content should face some responsibility, some accountability. And somewhere, I agree with you, perhaps in more mature democracies, perhaps, this sort of humor, one could apply that test that if you don't like it, don't watch it. That's what one personally would feel. But I wonder a little bit whether, that would really work in India. as of now, and perhaps we do need some degree of regulation. But may I just say one last thing?
Yes.
I think, Shiv, that nudge has come from the Supreme Court, but ultimately it is for Parliament to decide. Parliament should
Yeah.
legislate. And if it falls foul of what our constitutional protections are, then, some right-thinking person will come and challenge it. And the Supreme Court, I have enormous faith in our judiciary, will strike it down if it falls foul of, if it is ultra vires the Constitution. So we have to wait and watch now as to what happens.
I agree with you. I think we must all have faith in the process and in judiciary, and hopefully, this will lead to, whatever it leads to, it has to go through the process. There must be constitutional protections for whatever decisions are taken. But Shehzad Khan, if I could come to you, what do you think? This has been going on for the last few days, and it only appears to be escalating. State authorities, the police looking for Ranveer Allabadia, saying that he's not responding, this escalation to the Supreme Court. What do you think is going on here? Do you think this is a target, that Ranveer Allabadia is being made a target, or is there something bigger at play here? What do you think?
Thank you very much for having me on your show.
Thank you for coming, Shehzad.
Definitely, Ranveer is the page, you can say, the brand ambassador for the other targets who are going to be targeted very soon, and who, if the government thinks, should be targeted. And I think that these kind of things should stop. I totally do not like such kind, and especially from Ranveer Allabadia. I follow him. I used to see his podcast. Yes, such a nice boy, people used to come, monks used to come to his podcast, and big union ministers have come to his podcast. And a sensible guy like him, suddenly talking such kind of, there are introverts, there are extroverts, and there are perverts. On that show, India Got Latent, it clearly showed that he's a pervert. Now, what I feel, according to me, ठीक है, जो कानूनी कार्रवाइयां है, जो कानून बेहतर जानते हैं, वो बता सकते हैं. But this guy needs some kind of psychotherapy. He needs to go to a psychiatrist. He needs to understand, some kind of thing should be done, like in the US they have, and some community service should be done.
But Shehzad, if I could interrupt you for just a moment,
Yes.
on the internet and in the world of influencers, people are doing all kinds of crazy, shocking things in order to gain attention, to gain reach, to gain audiences. Isme naya kya hai? Why would he need psychotherapy? I'm just coming to you, Jay. Let him finish.
Just 2 minutes, Jay.
Yes.
See, Ranveer Allabadia ka jo image hai, the image that Ranveer Allabadia has been portraying from such a long time. It's a very soft, good boy kind of an image. Suddenly a good boy turning into a villain or a bad boy, it has hurt people. What I feel after talking to a lot of friends of mine and people around me, they said that we are very hurt. It is okay what he has spoken. That is absolutely filth.
Sir, if you hurt people over a bad joke, does that mean 3 state police will go after you?
Exactly.
Come on, we have to speak in proportion.
I don't know about the law much. Who has been targeting him and what? But yes, one more thing I would like to say, since we are talking about the police and all these things. A couple of years ago, not very far back, I think 1 or 2 years ago, there was a lady called Nuku Sharma. She also made some, very bad comments on a debate, and then she was also targeted, and she was also getting hate threats and all that. And then she did the same thing. She went to the Supreme Court. She got interim relief and all this, the same way as this Ranveer Allabadia did. So since she was also supporting the same party, he also comes in support of the same party. So there's quite a resemblance in these two cases. But leaving these things aside,
I don't want to get into the complexities and the differences of the two, because only for lack of time. But Jay, you wanted to come in, you wanted to respond to Shehzad?
I very respectfully disagree with Khan Saab. I don't agree with his characterization of Ranveer or anybody else as a pervert. I think you have to look at the context of where he was speaking. And merely because some of us think he's a chocolate boy, a good boy, a sweet boy, doesn't mean that he can't go on a comedy show and test the limits of what is acceptable and not acceptable. Now, of
Yeah.
course, certain people have taken a great offense and umbrage to what he has said. Now, that will be tested judicially. There is a legal system that will test whether this satisfies the ingredients of sections 294 or 296 or section 67 of the IT Act. So I don't think we should. There's no space, I think, for moral policing. With great respect to Khan Sahib, he's a veteran. I'm not. He has his view. But in terms of you can't start prosecuting. You can't launch criminal prosecution at the drop of a hat. And certainly, he should be. If you really ask me, this boy Ranveer should be getting police protection. Quite honestly, he's made disgusting remarks. There's no doubt. But can that be an excuse for lynching him? For sending, for allowing people to make death threats against him, his family? I'm told somebody stormed his mother's clinic and threatened his mother. Now, come on, we have to, I may not like what he's saying, but I still have to protect his right to say it, and the courts will decide. Let's allow the courts to decide. We don't have mob justice in this country. There's a constitution. And if the government feels that this sort of speech should be regulated, the government is well within its rights to go to parliament and bring a legislation and legislate. And if that legislation falls foul, Shiv, then it can again be tested, in terms of the constitution.
No, that's right.
If it falls foul of free speech.
There's also the issue of selectivity, and I'll bring Shehzad in on that. Shehzad,
may I just say one more thing? May I just say, I'm so sorry I'm interrupting you, Shiv. I don't want to interrupt
Go ahead.
you.
Finish your point.
This remark about Nupur, I have not liked it personally, what Mr. Khan has said. To compare what Nupur said, I think Nupur is, she's a victim. And, she said something, and, now poor thing today, she requires police protection, to a degree that one cannot imagine. Her movement is restricted. So to say that, she said something just like this, Ranveer, I'm sorry, it's not the same thing. It is a blot on this country. It is a blot on this country that we're unable to protect somebody like Nupur just because she read out from a religious scripture. She should be, if you ask me, she should be given an award for speaking out, for saying what she did, for having the courage for saying what she did. And, and for you to say today that she should be hounded, that she said something terrible, and she went to Supreme Court for a similar thing. I'm sorry, I don't agree with you, sir.
I'm sorry, I did not
say
poor girl.
But gentlemen, let's bring it back to Ranveer.
Munawar Farooqi was not given time. He was immediately put behind bars when he said something. He's also a YouTuber.
Let's bring it.
One side,
anyway,
I
don't want to shift the goalpost, but I don't think it's fair to bring in Nupur here at all. I don't think that's right.
I was just saying that the same system was seen before in Nupur Sharma's case.
Okay. Let's. Okay, you both had your say on the Nupur.
Talk about Nupur. Let's talk. No.
I don't want to make this about Nupur. You've both, had a go on that particular issue. But I want to bring it back to Ranveer. So I'll put the next question, Shehzad. There is also the issue of selectivity, and we've touched upon that as well. There are those who will say कि YouTube तो भरा पड़ा है with obscenity. There are stand-up comics who are saying vile, horrible, shocking, cringeworthy, obscene, whatever you want to call it, things, all the time, and it's there on YouTube. Whether it is in English, whether it is in Bhojpuri, whether it is in Telugu, whatever it is, that's there all. So many people will say that this is selective. This targeting of Ranveer is because he's big, because he's very popular, he's got enormous reach, he's the country's biggest podcaster. Therefore, it is convenient to go after him. What do you think, Shehzad?
See, there should be norms. There should be censorship. There should be censorship on YouTube, and government should make the norms. I remember there was a web series which had come by the name of Tandav. So much of a hullabaloo was made on that. There are so many things that people are making hullabaloo about it. So there should be norms. There should be severe censorship, especially on YouTube. Our films, look at the way our films get censored. Our teasers, when our teasers of our films go for censorship, they tell us 2 days and they take 10 days to get the teasers censored. The same way YouTube, either the YouTube censor it. If the YouTube is not doing it, then there should be censorship from the government. It should be done in a more, systematic way. Just anybody takes a camera, starts shooting, starts talking nonsense, starts abusing, starts running down our politicians, starts talking shit about our women. That's all should stop. I'm saying all these things should stop. What impression is it giving it globally? our country's impression. It's YouTube is
You've made a
global.
lot
It
of
is
points
just not
here.
India.
Okay. Okay. So you're saying that there should be regulation and there should be censorship. I'll give the last word to Jay. Jay.
Thank you, Shiv. This is such specious logic. I'm sorry. I disagree. Again, very respectfully, Khan Sahab, I completely disagree. There is a difference between censorship and regulation. Yes, some norms are required where you can, require these intermediaries to regulate themselves. If something truly offensive or obscene comes out, if something like pornography comes out or something that is really depraved comes on these platforms. But simply to say that because our film industry has trouble with censorship and takes 10 days to get a censor certificate, therefore everybody else must also suffer the same fate. I mean, I think that is, that is
I'm not saying
thinking.
suffer.
That is extremely regressive thinking. I think it's very unfortunate that someone who comes from a creative field like you wants to restrict creative thought. You should, in fact, be at the front line saying that no, there shouldn't be any censorship and there should be minimal regulation.
How can we allow people to say anything?
Well, those are opinions. And if somebody has an opinion, one moment, and if somebody has an opinion about a certain thing, you need to have that. How can you have thought crime? You are basically advocating thought crime. Next, you'll say there should be Sharia law imposed in this country. That's what you want.
I did not say Sharia law.
That is the next step.
I said
that is
censorship.
Exactly the next step.
See,
what is Sharia? That is also a form of censorship.
No,
what do you mean censorship? Why should there be a subjective test?
Fighting cases.
No, I'm sorry. Why should anybody, sir? Why should
everybody who's doing cases?
Even if I don't.
No, let's not make this. Let's not make this into something that it is not.
I did not say Sharia law.
If I do not like what you are saying, Khan Sahab, even if I don't like what you are saying, I will still defend your right to say it because that is your fundamental right to say it. I'm not going to say that because you have an opinion about me or about a certain politician or about a certain philosophy that you should not say it.
I did not say that.
Okay. I completely disagree. I disagree with you. You said censorship, sir. You said there should be censorship.
I think the point being made, and I think we can all agree on this, maybe Khan Sahab doesn't agree on it, is that, this is a dangerous path to go down for a country like India. We are a democracy at the end of the day. And if we start normalizing selective targeting, justifications for greater crackdown, censorship, regulation, whatever it is, even if it is with due process, where does it actually end? These are complex issues. We are a big country. We are practically a continent. We've got so many languages. We've got an absolute ocean of content coming out from our young generations right now. What is the best way to deal with it without, coming down on it with a heavy hand? It's a new world. Things are changing. Things are going to get infinitely more complicated now in the paradigm of AI and, fake videos and things like that. So one needs to wonder how things can actually be regulated in a proper manner, in such a way that, the country is not pushed back. Nobody is ever going to stand here and defend the contents of what Ranveer Allahabadia is saying. And I think all of us know that in the last 1 week, those of us who've been slightly disturbed by the disproportionate action have been finding ourselves saying that, Arey bhaiya, I am not defending the contents of the joke. I am defending the principle of his right to make a terrible joke and not face state action for it. There's a huge distinction between the two things. And that's the reason why I think it's important to put a spotlight on this. It's not about just one podcaster or one comedy show or one YouTube video. This is about what can happen to anyone out there. And that's the reason why we decided to bring both Jay and Shehzad onto this show. Thank you, gentlemen, for being with me. Really good to have the both of you. And look forward to having you back very, very soon here on India Today.